Hello, everyone. Welcome to our February webinar. We see lots of people making their way into the participants room, so we're super excited. Big audience today, which is awesome. Very popular topic that we've been discussing with a lot of our current customers and prospective customers. And then we do have a 3-person team on our end today as well to really bring it on home. So I'm joined here with Jason Lynch, our head of marketing, as well as Ozzer, who is our senior product manager. So we are super excited to tackle this topic today and hopefully a little bit more demystification around all things AEO, AI chat, and all that good stuff that we see in our news feeds every single day. So we are a minute past and we are recording this as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started if it allows me to. Perfect. So a little bit about NetSertive before we get started in case you're unfamiliar with us. NetSertive is the digital marketing partner really built for franchise and multi-location brands. So we help national networks win locally by combining data, automation, and then also the human aspect of our expertise from our winning customer experience team. So our platform connects HQ and corporate marketing strategies with local execution. The goal really being to drive stronger visibility, better lead flow, and measurable ROI for every single individual location. We work with lots of franchise and multi-location brands. And so this is a topic that we're covering today that many of them are having questions about, looking to incorporate into their 2026 marketing strategies. So we are excited to tackle it today. And for our agenda today, we're going to go over first, what's changing in local search. And then second, where brands are quietly losing visibility in the AI search game. And then, of course, leading that up with tactics that you can use now to start helping to increase and magnify your visibility across all the locations in a franchise or multi-location brand. And then lastly, Ozzer's going to show us how to scale it. And so what that looks like is taking a look behind the hood of one of the newest product offerings from NetSertive that is helping franchise and multi-location brands to take this localized issue of showing up in AI search and in Google AI summaries and all those things, and allowing us to track and monitor at a national level for our locations. So excited to see a little bit of a walkthrough on that today as well. And with that, I'm going to kick over to Jason to kick us off.
Yeah, thanks, Gabby. I think everyone is here because they are experiencing themselves how much search has changed, right? Even everyone on this call is either a marketer or a franchisee, and they know that themselves, they're using ChatGPT, they're using Perplexity, they're asking all these questions in new and different ways, and they're also hearing a lot of buzz about it, right? And so, how can they be thinking about building their businesses in a way so that their whole network is promoted correctly by not only traditional search engines who are now adding layers of AI results and answers to them, like AI overviews or AI mode, but also with more training based and AI tools like ChatGPT, for example, that will reach into its training data for knowledge that it has gathered and create answers that are not based on links or web searches. And then, depending on the kind of search across all of these platforms now, depending on what the person puts in, they will trigger web searches. So it's a very interesting time to be a digital marketer, to be a franchisee, or especially a home office franchise marketer, as you're thinking about how can you do the right thing. So you're training all these models, you're putting your data up where it needs to be, and you're being found locally, because that's ultimately what it is. It's AI powered discovery that's happening locally, and I think for me as a marketer, I think it's exciting because it's making everyone think about the customer journey and their digital presence with fresh eyes. And there's a lot of people that say, it's like a lot of similar stuff works that has worked for SEO for years. There's also different tactics, and ultimately, I think it's looking at everything holistically and ultimately your customer journey and figuring out who are your customers and what are the kinds of questions that they ask before doing business with you. How can they discover you, trust you, research your category? So the more that you are aligning to the human customer journey, the more that you're providing really valuable human information, the better that you're going to be, regardless of, whatever kind of tactic du jour is trending. So I think, we're seeing AI overviews, we're seeing chat assistants that are answering questions directly. There's voice search that skips websites entirely, and customers are getting decisions without visiting your website. But the core fundamentals under all of that is knowing who your customers are, providing the information needs that they have at every stage of the customer journey, and doing everything you can do to provide as much value to your local markets as possible so that people want to engage with you with reviews. They want to go to your website and convert. They want to, do business with you ultimately. Because I always view a robust digital presence as a representation of a robust real life business. It's very hard to have a great digital presence if you don't have a authentically great business, right? You really can't fake it very well for very long. So I think exciting stuff here, and we can go to the next slide. I think the
Awesome.
idea that your brand needing to be the answer, or you don't exist, right? And that's one of your things you like to say, Gabby.
It is. I love that you find it exciting because I think a lot of brands find it daunting, right? It feels very all or nothing in the concept of not existing to a customer if you're not showing up in those searches. And so I think one thing you mentioned, Jason, that's really helpful is the concept that we were in the search era, I think, for so long, and we still are in it in so many ways, right? It's not this or that, it's layered. And so looking at search era and maybe the KPIs and the things that we were aiming for brands when we're looking at what is successful in this era, and then adding on the answer era that we're calling it, what is that layer and what does that do to what we're tracking and monitoring on a brand side? So for search era, I think a lot of the main focuses that we were looking at was ranking in results through keywords and driving website traffic, and then really optimizing our pages for keywords in our content. A lot of that is still super important, but what we want to also layer into it, right? Not to add more jobs to marketers' plates because I know we have a lot, but adding into it, how do we also get cited in AI answers? How do we build authority and trust, which are things that we're already working on building, but I think it's more crucial than ever to build it as quick as possible, knowing that so many of these AI chatbots and assistants are pulling through based on authority and trust. And then, of course, influencing how your brand is summarized. So a little bit of a different perspective on where we were at in the search era, and then now this new layer that we're adding on top of the search era to ensure that our digital presence holistically is as strong as possible. So taking the what and moving to the how, what are we tracking? Search era, we were really aiming to win that click, and we were measuring traffic as a way to know if campaigns or initiatives were at least driving interest to our site. That is no longer the case of the most important things to measure. And we'll go over that a little bit in a second of how traffic is kind of a lost metric in some ways. But our answer era, what we're looking at now is competing for authority, winning citations within AI, and then also measuring share of voice. And so a little bit of a different perspective on how we want customers to think about us, interact with us. That is where this answer era comes in. Search era is still important, but so many of the marketers that we have either on this webinar today or maybe watching this recording later on have been focusing on search era and having it be fully optimized. So just a reminder that websites are never stationary and they never should be. And we have to continue to bring about more in the answer era as far as competing for authority and winning citations in that side as well. And then, of course, because we are in the franchise and multi-location space, marketers don't have enough problems. This problem does multiply with every location. So when you have a 100 location franchise or multi-location brand, you don't just have one visibility challenge, you have 100. And I'm talking to the choir here. I know I am. So 100 local markets, maybe 100 local competitors that you're having to do different citations and authority complexes for, sets of content for each of those locations, and unfortunately 100 chances to be invisible. So how do we combat that at the national level to equip our franchise owners to have as strong a presence as possible, whether it's against another national competitor or a local competitor? So all of that to say, manual optimization will not scale, maybe for 5 locations, but definitely not for 100, 200, or 500 locations. And I think, Jason, we were talking about this yesterday, which I think was super helpful for me, as someone who's done presentations on this now and has been researching in our own. I know so many marketers on this call have as well. AI is becoming the front door to discovery, but it's not just the platforms that we hear about all the time, like the ChatGPTs or the Perplexities or the Claudes, right? AI is becoming the front door to discovery because on Google now, you're not even seeing the ads as the first thing that pops up when you're searching for a solution. You're seeing a Google AI summary. And so I think for me, I can very easily fall into the trap of thinking that it's only for those AI chatbots and assistants that people are conversing with, right? Conversational AI. But it's also going to be, it's a shift that the entire market is taking. We're talking about Google and Bing and those platforms that traditionally were search-based platforms that are now incorporating AI. So the same tactics and some of the same ones can really help you on both avenues of that. But we never want to make it seem like it's only these new platforms that are popping up on the system. Also, the traditional ones are taking shifts in how their algorithms are pulling and how they're developing their own AI models. And that is where our content shift has to occur as well. So the hidden problem, as we mentioned, clicks that are decreasing for so many websites, it doesn't mean that there's less demand for those products or services. Customers are still having intent. They're just diversifying where they're looking and researching. So fewer clicks does not mean fewer buyers. It is truly a visibility problem and not a demand problem. And that trips a lot of teams up, I think, because for so long we were looking at traffic patterns and seeing clicks as a metric to be able to track and see success from. Now our clicks are down, but potentially customers are up because they're discovering you in new ways if you have a strong digital presence through AI. And Jason, I think one thing that we talked about as well, share of answer is greater than share of clicks, which I think is a great way to segue into our next section.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting looking at be the answer in that concept because sometimes, depending on the interface that someone's in, there might be a single answer, right? A single result, or even the way that they ask a question, they're going to get one response. And it's, if you look at a typical search engine results page, you have, 20 different types of elements on it. You've got ads, you've got all the organic links, you've got the meta pack, you've got, the people also ask questions. I mean, it's very, there's a lot to choose from, a lot to scan. And so as you're really looking at how can you be the best and be the answer and kind of own that share of answer, because you're gonna the better that you can surface as the recommended solution, that's ultimately what's going to drive more discovery into your business. It might be that they then go and search for you on another search engine, or they click through. But if you look at the shift of what marketers must do now to regain control, it really is a simple playbook. Maybe it's not totally simple to execute, but it's simple to think about in this way of, it's show up, it's influence, and systematize. And if you think about what I was saying before around, you have these different use cases for the information needs of your, customers, and how are you checking the boxes on the information needed across the customer journey and doing it in a way that your digital footprint is sound technically and, representing, in a way that is going to indicate that you have the best quality results, and it's correlating with the way that people who want to do business with you are going to be thinking about your business. So if you go to the next slide, it's really this consistency is key. So you can focus on getting the basics right first. And we talk to, franchise brands every day that are still struggling with getting the basics right. So the good news is there's likely a lot of things that you can be doing to improve how you're showing up and just getting these foundations in order. So like clean, standardized location pages, accurate business info everywhere, FAQs that answer real questions, structured data, and schema, which is that the way that you're annotating the content on your web pages behind the scenes, and helpful human content. So it really is similar to SEO in the sense that you have to look at the technical, the content, and your off-page presence and how you're getting everything in order. So it really is about before you do anything fancy, it's just saying yes, I exist, right? And similar to how you show up on the Mac Pack and you work on local SEO, right? It's about anchoring your location page geographically and with the kind of business that it is. So it's getting as many quality links to point to this location with all of the localized markers and long tags and everything. So it's very obvious where this location page is correlating to in the real world, right? Because it's all about that localized experience that you're giving to people, and that's how you build trust. Um, and really AI or any kind of AI or bot is not it can't cite what it doesn't understand. So it's really just this boring but powerful idea of consistent information in all the right places. And if you go to the next slide, it's really a lot of quick wins that you can do. And you don't have to do everything all at once. You can look at what are the top pages where are people really coming to your site and how are they exploring your site before converting? So take those pages and add FAQs to the top 10 pages. Standardize your location page templates, publish, review, and testimonial content. This is a huge one. Really positive reviews and also thinking about the questions that people might ask and if you have enough content and coverage in your reviews related to those questions. So if you're a gym, people say, is such and such a gym clean? Right. And so if you have a lot of reviews that talk about how clean the gym is, or if you have a lot of reviews that talk about how dirty the gym is, uh, these bots are going to pull in that information and shockingly effectively. So it really is about, you can be intentional with the reviews and the campaigns that you're running with asking people to, uh, you know, different things that you need to talk about based on what you know. So do you have a COVID-19 protocol page still on your site, right? That's important because what are the cleanliness protocols? If people ask that, you need to have the information. So if you don't provide that information, then no, the bots are not gonna know that it exists. Um, and answering your top customer questions directly, implement basic schema markup. So we're talking about that of on the back end, how are you marking up your pages so that it's the content is as surfaceable and clear as possible to these bots as they're looking on your site. So there's always opportunity in improving the basics, and I think that's as leaders you can always lead by saying we need to make sure we're good to go on our fundamentals, right? It's a timeless thing, and so it's a good opportunity to have some wins here.
Yeah, I just want to add in there, Jason. That's a good point. One thing you said was that you don't have to do it all at once. And one of the things I've been seeing across different clients and different people is that there's a tendency to be like, "Oh my God, there's so much. I need to add all this stuff," and then I would say, overutilize AI to create the FAQs, to create the schema code. And that can be an issue because I've seen multiple cases now where the FAQs are just wrong. The schema, because it is code, it's not structured correctly, and that will definitely hurt you more than it'll help you. So I just want to highlight to AI is a great tool, But to make sure when you're adding this content, especially if it's schema code, to make sure that you're actually reviewing it. As you said, at the end of the day, a human is going to read it. A human should also approve it. And if you're like, it's better to do it step by step and make sure that it's correct than to be like, okay, I have all this stuff. I'm going to put it into ChatGPT. This is the content. It's going to go on my site. Now I have content for everything. That's not necessarily the solution here either. It's being still thoughtful, the same way you would do anything that represents your business.
I love it. So AI can't solve all our problems, Ozzer?
Well, not all of them. Oh yeah, working on it.
What about a lot of AI at scale? What 100x the content?
I love it. Thanks, Ozzer. That's great. Great feedback on the technical side, especially because I know that some marketers may not be as confident in that side of things. And so always a good rule of thumb to follow. Moving on to level 2. So we started level 1, showing up. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you're showing up, right? Like at least your brand is visible to customers. Level 2, so let's say you're showing up consistently. That's awesome. Let's work on influencing what AI has to say about you. So maybe you're showing up consistently, but like Jason mentioned, maybe if you are a gym owner, for example, and your gym has reviews stating that maybe it's not the cleanest gym, maybe that's what's showing up for you consistently. And so how do we influence what AI says? Because AI is going to summarize what already exists. It does not invent opinions about your brand out of, complete nothingness. So we want to make sure that if you don't like how you're being described, the fix isn't arguing with the algorithm or whatever you try to do there. It's really about improving the inputs that AI is taking in. So AI pulls from what it sees repeatedly and clearly. So those things that you really want it to focus on, like cleanliness or COVID-19 protocols, right? That feels like it's so far away, but it's still very important for a lot of consumers. Or just overall positive reviews, your most popular products. If those things aren't clearly stated and consistently stated across all of your content, AI will fill in the gaps with whatever it can find. So 5 areas that really matter here: having clear claims about your business, strong positioning around who you are, what you do, and why you're the best at it. Localization, so ensuring that each individual location within a multi-location brand has those call outs of location, areas, regions, cities, whatever you service or whoever you're around, having that be really to the front of your content as much as possible. Also having a consistent brand voice through all of your content, and then also having authoritative content. So being able to show that you are the subject matter expert in whatever your industry or your field is. So AI will really, when those signals are aligned, it'll be able to take all of that information in, not have to guess about you as a brand, and then it can confidently cite you as a reputable source for a product or a service. So it'll summarize who you are, what you specialize in, why customers trust you, and then how you compare to competition. So you have the ability to influence these things, but it's really about understanding first where you're showing up, then what is showing up, and then being able to influence from there. So it is kind of a step-by-step process. And of course, content is still king. So the biggest misconception that I think so many brands have right now is that AI changes everything about content. It doesn't change everything about content. So content is still how you show up. The main difference here is that AI is pulling short, factual answers and not interpreting the nuance or marketing language maybe that we, as marketers, I'm guilty as well, love to include in our copy when we're writing it. So if your site does not clearly state things like your services offered, your location details, or key differentiators between you and competitors, AI simply cannot and will not surface you as a top in your marketplace for your local community. So what we see consistently is the brands that are focusing more on having clear, specific content rather than the ones who are trying to be clever are the ones that are winning those citations. So AI will always reward clarity, not necessarily the creative marketing speak that we may love for our brands. And then a quick example about AI just like loving specificity and also loving direct call outs. I think the structure of a page also speaks a lot to when it's weak versus when it's an AI friendly page. So generic marketing copy, we have to get it out. It is a thing of the past. It's basically invisible to AI. Clear and factual answer style content is what is going to showcase both to AI, but also relatively to your customers as well if they land on your page, to know exactly who you are, what you do, and why you're better. So the goal isn't prettier copy that sounds great. It's about clear answers and being able to showcase who you are and what you do in as compact and as direct of a way as possible. So level 2, some quick wins that you can do this month. If you left today and only did like 5 of these things, and our whole presentation, you'd be very, very far ahead of a lot of brands. So I think this is great as things, as Author said, to slowly incorporate into your strategy, not trying to take it all over at once. They're not complex. They just require a little bit of discipline in keeping them in your strategy. So rewriting headlines, for example, with your service plus your city. So ensuring that localization is very, very at the forefront of every individual content page. Replacing any vague language with proof points to show that you are better than competition. And then even creating content around cost or customer reviews and near me queries as well. So localization, as well as the information that customers and AI are really going to want that showcases your trust in the community, but then also details people may be searching for around cost. Those are great ways to make sure that your content is specific and scannable for your customer and for AI. So these are all small changes to make, but they do have big visibility impact. And you can see our little visual at the bottom as the AI visibility gap is slowly going over to the high visibility section. We mentioned this is level 2, so you want to make sure you're doing the basics, as Jason mentioned first, before you're looking to change all of the content. So focus, and it's a slow way. It's very similar to SEO, where we talk about you're going to see results months down the line as you continue to make these optimizations. You want to be able to do that as well here so that you can continue to see stronger flow for you as you're going through your journey to AI optimization. And then level 3 is our last one, is that systemizing across every location. So we are in the franchise and multi-location space. So we know that at scale, you are feeling the pain because doing for 5 locations, as I mentioned, is very doable. Doing for 300 is pretty much impossible manually unless you have a very, very large team on your end. So level 3 is all about turning this into a system instead of the hero work of an entire team doing all this, or every individual owner having to do this, right? So at scale, you're going to need prompt and query tracking, citation visibility, sentiment monitoring to know what the AI is saying and if you need to influence it one way or the other, content workflows, and then repeatable processes that are easy to scale across your entire system. And so what a system here actually looks right? Like, so teams that win do this weekly. They're checking visibility gaps for locations. They're creating, updating content. They're measuring citation analytics, and then they're doing that repetitively as more information is available about their brand, as more reviews come in. And so this system is a recurring one that is not treated as a one-time campaign, but rather as a cycle that you can continuously have into your workflows. So it becomes a rhythm, and that's how you're going to be continuously building your authority over time. And Ozer's time to shine is here as well. So NetSertive does support this framework in a lot of ways for our customers because we recognize that it is a big gap for a multi-location brand to be able to do it. So our goal is to have a connected approach that really aligns this strategy and allows the franchise marketing ecosystem to be completely connected. So a lot of our customers find a lot of success when they have everything from their reporting for HQ and locations to their KPIs, everything in the middle, all connected so that they're not seeing things in silos, rather seeing an entire ecosystem of their marketing strategy. And so, Ozra, I'm going to kick it over to you for our AEO product demo. If you want to go ahead and share your screen over mine.
Righty. Hey, thanks, Gabby, for that introduction. So as she mentioned, we have been thinking about this problem, or opportunity rather, as Jason said. It's an exciting opportunity of how to address AEO and all the data that comes with it, because it can sound rather scary, especially when we're in a multi-channel approach where, there's all these different AI algorithms, AI LLMs that we have to be aware of. Whereas with traditional SEO, it's more, although there are other channels like Bing, DuckDuckGo, et cetera, everyone's really focused on Google. So one of the challenges that comes with AEO is making sure that the updates that we're doing are scalable across those different LLMs. And we really try to keep that in mind with how we built this our platform here. And we also wanted to make sure that our platform was very action oriented, because again, as I'm sure everyone on this know, marketers these days have so much data. So you don't want another dashboard that just gives you a ton of data without really knowing what to do with it, right? You want to make sure you're not just buried in data. You want to be able to make those changes. And as Gabby said, able to do that on a recurring basis, whether it be weekly, monthly, whatever makes sense for your team, and really see that progress going forward. So for that reason, on our AEO tool here, the very first thing we have, and you can see we're running this right now for one of our brands, Tint World, which is an automotive window tinting, et cetera, business. And we really start off with this idea of like, these are the recommendations. These are, if you're not going through and looking at all the details, these are the prompts that you want to focus on right now. So your pricing prompt, your look at the details about specific locations, the contact. So these things are, you come and then right away you can update, make those updates over time. Go to the prompts here. So we know that it's important to track different types of prompts, different things that make sense for your business. So we, with the brand, we're tracking a variety of different branded and unbranded prompts. And this is something that our team would work with the specific client to make sure that, hey, does this prompt make sense for your business? Does it not make sense? Is there something specific you want to focus on? And making sure that we're tracking visibility around the different product sets, verticals, what have you, that apply to you. And making sure we're looking on desktop and mobile, targeting things that are middle of funnel, top of funnel, just across the different spectrum. So we're able to get as much information as possible in making sure that we're helping you guys grow. And then we're able to see, like, is there an AI overview for this prompt? Are you cited? Is your competitor cited? And all that information can be super helpful in just determining, how to move forward. And one of the things we also see is with those prompts that we're tracking, what is the intent? And this is super important because, again, it tells you, similar with traditional marketing, whether it's SEO or paid, when you're, depending on your strategy, you want to focus on top of funnel, bottom of funnel. And that correlates here with this sort of intent. So if it's something transactional, that may be a prompt you want to really get ahead of, because that could be customers that are, ready to make the sale and they're very actively looking. So you want to make sure that you have content for that as well. We also do sentiment analysis. So we look at these prompts and the results that we're getting. How is AI talking about your brand, right? Like, is it mostly neutral? Is it positive? Is it negative? And this is something that's super important. And this is one of the ways in which I think AI and AI overviews and AEO can be super powerful, because it gives you a degree of visibility that as marketers, we didn't necessarily have before. So when you were just, looking up, getting data about, are you ranking first or fifth or eighth, that only gives you one piece of information. Whereas now, where we are able to capture the entire AI overview response, we can learn a lot more about what these systems are thinking. And that means that we can optimize and update a lot faster, and ultimately becomes a lot more valuable. And this is particularly important for franchise and multi-location brands, because one of the things that we've seen is that, given the multi-location brands, naturally different locations will have slightly different service offerings, they'll have different owners, they'll have different hours of operation. AI doesn't necessarily always understand that. So one of the things we've seen is that some franchise brands will get dinged on AI and have a neutral sentiment, because AI will say, oh, these guys are inconsistent, their information, you can't really trust it. And that's something that can really, really hurt your business, especially when you talk about competing with, call them like mom and pop, stores that are connected to your business that may have very distinct, very clear content. As Gabby was mentioning, clarity is super important for AI. So those are things that are important to be aware of. It's not like a death knell for multi-location by any sense. There's ways you can fix for that by having, clear structured data, by having clear content about, we are multi-location, this is valid for this location. But it's really important to be ahead of that and make sure that you're not getting dinged for just the nature of your business, because you're not, seeing what's going on there. And then we also give content suggestions based on what's going on there. And then, speaking of the prompts, as I mentioned, we can see here, based on the specific prompt. So this is a branded prompt, the reviews. So what is AI saying, and who is being referenced here as well. And this is really important. In this case, they show up, which is great. Their Tint World itself is referenced, but I've seen cases where, it's their competitors who are having competitive conquesting pages, and that's what's mentioned as a review page. And you really want to get ahead of that. There was a time period where there was a lot of Reddit. There still is for some platforms, but just making sure that you're, on those places where your customers are talking about you. So Jason was saying how reviews are so important, and they definitely are. And this also gives you that channel of like, okay, reviews on our website are important, on our Google business profile are important, but where else are people talking about your brand? And making sure that you're getting ahead of those as well. And yeah, so here we can see an example. This is a more unbranded prompt, how to choose window tint. And here, this particular brand is not cited. There's a lot of YouTube, a lot of like higher, the word funnel, just more general content. And so you want to make sure you're showing up there as well. But there's a lot of key information here. And as I said, all this will be customized based on what makes sense for you, what prompts are like appropriate for your business in general, but also in a specific area of time as well. And then in addition to that, we can see general search data to making sure that we are looking at the top pages so that we're looking at the right things. Where are we cited, our citation context, our organic result information, and all this really pulls into how Google and other AI LLMs are thinking about your brand, because they're not just looking at one thing, they're looking at all of these different things. And so it's really important to be aware of that. And then we also have competitor data. I just set this up so it hasn't synced yet, but if we have competitors, we can see how we're performing relevant to them as well. And that can be super important when we're talking about how, what type of content we want to develop. Where are ways that, there might be little areas where we can really jump ahead and develop content that they may not have, or like they're being cited for this prompt and you're not. And that can be super, super important. And AEO is just such a good opportunity to get ahead of these things. And I think it's super powerful. And with that being said, these are more, as I mentioned, high level for your entire domain. But for multi-location businesses, you also want to look at specific pages, see how your local brands are doing as well. So for example, on the analyze page here, we can look at that specific location. So here I'm looking at the Burlington location. So we can see the AEO score of this specific location. So things that they're doing well. So there's a lot of structured data. They have breadcrumbs, web page, auto body shop, structured data, which is really good because then the LLMs specifically know that this is what, this is the service that they're talking about. Because something like tinting could be, okay, are they talking about window tinting for, for your house, for your boat, for whatnot? So it's really important to have this structured data, looking at your content structure, the quality of your content. And this is really key, your semantic HTML. And I know that sounds like, what is that? But it's something to be aware of. It's just making sure that your code is structured properly, that you have alt text, which basically means that, if someone has visual acuity issues, or they're, doing voice AI, that there's a description of what that image is. So that's something you'd put in the code there. So for example, if it was a picture of a gentleman by a car, it would be alt text gentleman by car, so that when voice text or something like that is going through your page, it understands what that is. It's not just screenshot -xy.jpg, which is not really going to be helpful and could ding you. So having these types of checks is something that can be super, super helpful as well. And then as always, we try to be very action oriented. So there are additional recommendations. So in this case, we talk about FAQs a lot. So there is an FAQ there, but it's something like, hey, to enhance the chances, making sure that's even more detailed and set up properly, have video tutorials, because as we saw, for those more generic unbranded prompts, YouTube and other video content is showing up highly. So this really lets you have a clear plan of attack rather than this, oh, I need to be better for AI. What does that mean? Like, what is Claude looking for? What is Google looking for? I don't know. So this is like very, very specific and actionable. And as I mentioned before, I'm realizing I didn't really finish my point about looking at different LLMs. So the way that we approach that, given the fact that it is a multi-channel approach, is we're internal logic. We develop a system that we think is directionally relevant for the algorithms of each of those different platforms. So while we can't be 100% sure that this is what ChatGPT is saying, for example, because some of that data is just not available, it's constantly updating. This is going to give you, like, our platform is going to give you that really good directional guidance, as well as very specific scores on certain platforms like Google AI Overviews, which do have that data. to help guide you. And ultimately, if you're doing things which is good for your customer, first of all, I should say, and that's good for the AI algorithm for one of these providers, it's going to be good for all of them. So it's really important to get ahead of that as well, and to be able to look, as I said, on that specific location level to make sure that we're not only is corporate showing up, but each individual location is showing up too. And then depending on how you want to your franchise agreement and how much control each location has, this is something that a location could go in and they could write up their own FAQs, or they could develop their own video content. So it's not something that just has to be a massive overhead on corporate to like shoot videos for every location. And that just helps build your brand out. Because a lot of these things we kind of already know. The more local content you have, the better it's always going to be. The more video content, usually it's better it's going to be. But this just gives you that clear number of, okay, this is something that'll really help. And then the other piece here that's super critical is, as we said, content is king, and content is what AI is still reading from. So one of the other pieces we've added here is content generator. So this will give you suggested prompts, again, based on what you're showing up for, what you're not showing up for, where your competitors might be showing up. And then based on that, we're going to give you some information. So some of these prompts, it might be, your competitors are ranking that you're not. So you want to create content to make sure that you're competing as well. And if we go here let's go to how to choose window tint, it's going to generate a brief. And so this will give you information like, these are the keywords you can target. This is a recommended content structure based on, as I mentioned, that semantic HTML, how you should structure your headings, making sure that your headings are properly formatted, different sections, FAQs, which is super critical. And we really want to, going forward, I would say anytime you're developing content, add an FAQ, whether it be for publicly viewable or just in the schema code that was mentioned. FAQ is just so critical. And that's where we also give the structured data recommendations, content format recommendations, and just a lot. And then if you want to go to the next level and have us generate the full article, that's something that we can do as well. That being said, as I mentioned earlier, making sure anytime you're generating something with AI, you actually also read it before you feed it into your system, and making sure that it makes sense for where you're, for your business and what you're looking for at this time. But the idea here is really to help turbocharge the process and push you to that next level of AEO performance, and just improve your brand. And I think there's so much power here. There's so much possibility. And we're super excited about this platform. And that being said, we know that it can be a little scary with all these new tools and all this new language. So we've also added in other, I think, helpful things such as a glossary. So all these different terms, there's a clear definition, how they interrelate and connect to each other, to make sure that, we're talking about the same thing. You're speaking the same language. I know that might sound like a bit of homework, but the idea of it being here is that if it's something that you need to learn, it's always just there. You don't have to look it up every time. And in addition to that, to make this more seamless, we've also added a search assistant. So here you can ask it something like, how can I improve my AEO score, for example? And it's saying, okay, we have a score of this right now. We can aim to get more cited, in these different things. So one of our top performing prompts is tent world pricing. So we could say, what prompts should we focus on? And then here it'll point out prompts where, window tint warranty, we're not performing as well. And that's something that we're like, okay, that's something that we want to improve on. We go to the content, and then we can be like, all right, window tint warranty, it's right there. I know that's something I want to focus on, generate the brief, and just have that full cycle connection, and just, again, make this all work so much faster. And I hope I've shared some of my excitement here with you guys. With that, I'll pass it back to Gabby, but I just want to say again, there's so much opportunity here because your competitors might not be doing this, right? So anytime you can get that competitive advantage in the market, it's only going to be good for you and your business, given that you act on it. Cool.
I love it. Thanks, Azar. And I got excited. I don't know about everyone who's watching, but I got excited. So that's something. We're going to wrap up a little bit, but did want to say, obviously, Azar went through one of our current customer profiles, but we can also, for franchise marketers who might be watching, if you are interested in learning more about this product and service from NetSertive, we are happy to hop on a call and look through with your domain specifically and just give you some insights based on what we see. I think this is one of the only platforms I'm aware of, if not the only one, that allows you to have this view and intelligence at both the corporate level, but also at the location level as well, which is just huge for franchise marketers in general, to be able to have one less platform to have to go through and be able to have everything in one place. And so definitely think it's a game changer. Ozzer and the team worked super hard on it. So we are very excited to see it completely go to market, which is awesome. And then last thing as well, I know we're a little bit over time, but we thank you for joining today. If you have any questions, feel free. Jason's email is on the screen. We can get that over to our team as well to help develop that. But we love this topic and always love to talk shop. So any franchise marketer on the line, please feel free to reach out to us and we can hop on a call and discuss more. And with that, Jason, any final parting words?
No, thanks, Gabby. Thanks, Ozzer. Really, really good stuff. And thanks everyone for attending.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.